put him on his back. Thurston, right foot kick, down the ground, into the in goal almost. Hodgson cuts it off. Hodgson taken by Norton. He took him late. Marshall skips away. Marshall's still going. Marshall's got Richards coming up outside. Now inside. Richards pursued. He pushes Johnson away.
Good evening, everybody. Tuesday, the 22nd of April, you're back for another episode of the Tiger Town podcast with your hosts, Zach and Toby. Brought to you, as always, by Best on Ground Digital, bestongrounddigital.com, the digital marketing agency that looks after the little guy. They will not steer you wrong, bestongrounddigital.com. Zach at this end, Toby at that end. How you going, Toby, at that end?
Mate, I'm tired. Barely slept last night because I was so fucking angry, and I'm going to swear early this podcast because I was so angry I couldn't sleep. It's great.
Why were you angry?
Oh, I was angry at the performance. I was angry at the refereeing. I was angry at the situation.
Yeah.
Just angry. There was
angry.
I think the West Tigers Life podcast went and did some interviews after the game. I saw on Facebook, and there was this one kid that just said, "I'm just angry." I'm like, "I feel you, bro. I feel you."
You reckon he summed it up best, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just angry.
There's something about this club, mate, and put something on socials earlier today or yesterday, I think it was, actually following the game, which is that we don't seem to get the happy endings, so to speak. And I know we've had our 2005, we had that good run in that situation, but anytime there's a storyline that can be capped off with the Tigers win, we just don't get the win. You can go through all the examples over the years, all the win at Leichhardt at home and gets you into the finals and breaks your drought. I mentioned when the boys played for Robbie Farah's mother's passing, the Tommy Radonicus game, however many others were there. There was another one recently as well. Yeah. We just don't win big games. This club is just allergic to big games. I sent a message in the private chat. Was it Saturday? I think it was the day before, or maybe Sunday.
Yep.
And I think your brother was all over it in terms of confidence. And I just said, I've had a bad feeling for a day or two.
And yeah, you did say that.
I did all weekend. You could just see it coming an absolute mile away.
Yeah, it was... I don't know, like, I had a relatively good feeling, even at half-time. I was like, yeah, you know what? We've become a one-half team, and I didn't feel like we played well in the first half. And then we had some extremely poor calls go our way, but we couldn't back it up. We just kept letting them through. And, like, that's Tigers of old. That's Tigers of old, when we've had calls go against us, and we just can't defend them.
Yeah.
I thought we'd turn a corner from that, if I'm honest. But
well, so had I. And I was thinking about that because defensively we didn't look like the unit. We looked like last year's defence.
Yeah.
We didn't look like the unit that we've seen so far this year, the desperation in scramble. But even positionally, and from a structural standpoint, it was just different. We had people sliding when they should have jammed in. We had people going one out ahead of the ruck, eyes not on the ball, or eyes not on the ball carrier. And it was just, it was disjointed. And I put it down to the positional changes in the back line.
Yeah, so do I.
Where we saw Dewey move into halfback, Dewey didn't particularly defend on the other side, one man in all that well, to be honest. And
no, he did.
As a result, we also lost the connection he'd started to develop out in the centres there. Although, given he's cycled through wingers, I guess you could say, this year. But having Naden in there, and Naden's up there missing high single digit tackles and making poor reads, mind you. I think that's a massive contributing factor.
Absolutely. I think it was very, very clear from the outset that Dewey was not sliding well from his halfback position. He wasn't. Like, we've become a side that jams and then slides, but we do it well. And Luai did it quite a number of times quite well on his side, but Dewey wasn't. Whether he's lost that speed, whether he's lost whatever, I'm not sure. But he wasn't sliding properly, which was forcing everyone else to jam in. And then how many times did Taruva get caught out of position? That's not like Taruva.
Yeah.
He's not. He's relatively a bloody good defender, but he was getting caught out of position consistently because of that lack of urgency from Dewey. And it's rather disappointing because there was it's a huge milestone game for him. Excuse me, like I started going to sleep. It's a huge milestone game for him. It was 100 games for somebody that has had a horrid run of injuries. And whether the occasion got to him, or whether he has literally lost a fair bit of speed, who knows? But I basically put a line through him after that game of ever playing in the halves for us again. He didn't offer anything really in attack. His fifth tackle options were worse than Galvin's the week before. And so, I've put a line through him. So I was screaming for Latu to be fit, but he's still a couple of weeks away. So,
play it safe. Hopefully, I think Latu was spoken about in the press conference, and Benji mentioned possibly this week, but more likely next week. So we might well see him. It's Magic Round is after the Sharks game. Yeah, so we might well see him up there. We've then got a bye, so I wouldn't be at all surprised if they err on the side of caution with the break. I think we've got the bye after the Dragons. Is that right? Actually, I might have completely stuffed that up, actually. That's okay. Let's have a look now. Let me confirm that while I'm double-checking. What do we got here? Sharks, Dragons, Storm, Rabbitohs, bye. Don't know what I've done there. Anyway. Yeah, okay. Forget that. Back to talking about Dewey. You are quick to get the red pen out, and I don't disagree that he didn't have a strong game. He just looked to me like he took the instruction of play your role too seriously, and he forgot to play football. And I think that Dewey's at his best when there's no pressure on him, a la when he's in the centres and he's not in a key position, and he's just playing what he sees in front of him. He has a tendency to crab across field a little bit sometimes too, and sometimes nothing comes of it, sometimes there is. But he played the role well, but I think that, he played way too safe. He barely took the line on. He wasn't looking for offloads. The kicking game was pretty pedestrian, and early on, Riley's at Smith.
Yeah.
Para. He was all over him. He was offside at marker every time. It ridiculous, but he was all over him. And Adam didn't adjust. He didn't drop back a couple of steps. He didn't get a blocker in front or position a player in front for these next couple of kicks and go, push in front, block me. So that was a bit disappointing as well from my standpoint. Look, he's only ever going to be a backup half, and I think that we know that his position is definitely back in centre, particularly in our squad. But look, having him to call on in a first or second drop scenario is not the worst in the world, I think, even with that performance.
Yeah, look, when I say a line through him, the only reason I say that is because I have said it multiple times this year on the podcast. I'm loving him in centre. I'm loving him out there. I don't want him to move from there anymore. I want him to stay there and we'll find other options for the halves. Because, as you said, when he doesn't have the world on his shoulders, which he seemed to on the weekend, he doesn't. I don't think he plays well, and I think that's very clearly, very, very evident of the performance on the weekend, or yesterday, not even the weekend. But every game that he's played in the centres, he's been in my top 5 in terms of players.
Yeah.
So I'd prefer to keep him there and find other options.
Yeah, and look, lo and behold, that's what we've seen happen in the side that's been selected this week, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Mate, before we jump into the sink or lift and start breaking that game down a little bit further, I just wanted to re-announce for anybody that didn't see on the socials at halftime yesterday. Obviously, unfortunately, went a bit downhill after that message, so blame me if you want. But the winner of... What's that?
Yeah, we can blame you. That's good.
You always do, mate, anyway, so I'm relatively used to it. But the winner of our jersey giveaway, nice big black boy about to get all bundled up and sent off, was Matt Gray, and we've been in touch with Matt, so we'll send that off to him. Another big thank you to everybody who not only have liked, shared, and tagged and entered the draw for the jersey this year, but just who have listened to the show, who have commented on the show, who've given us a bit of feedback and whatnot, good and bad, over the last 100 and whatever episodes. It's very humbling to think that people do still enjoy listening to us yammer on about the club we love.
Yeah.
So, thanks again. And I don't have to do those announcements anymore, which is good because I nearly forget every single week. Mate, sink or lift this week. We've already mentioned a name or two. Let's throw the doors wide open to the squad or the team on the weekend, the performance. Who are you sinking, mate, first up?
I've actually got two. Because I felt
Who's breaking the rule? Who's breaking the rules this week?
Well, you broke it last week. Because I think they both contributed a lot to poor structure, and that's Naden and Dewey. And I don't want to put Dewey there. I don't. I think he's been phenomenal this year, but he really defensively, he was poor. And he didn't add a lot in attack in any way, shape, or form. And Naden, across the park, was poor. What did he? Yeah, he ran for 116 metres. What did he fucking do? But missed 6 tackles. 6. 3 ineffective. Yeah, I think that's...
But it's beyond that too, though, remember. Whenever we talk about edges and centres, it's not just the missed tackles, it's the misreads, isn't it? And
yeah, absolutely.
That edge was cut to bits.
And it was a lot of it to do with those two.
Yeah, that being said, it wasn't only that edge. So was the other edge, but there was instances there where, some of the decisions that Naden made, not too great to say the least.
And that's disappointing because I was really excited for him this season. I thought, based off his trial form, form in the Indigenous, he was going to have a year to remember. Now, it could be the fact, he dislocated his bloody kneecap. That's a pretty significant injury. So potentially that was playing on his mind. Maybe he came back too early, who knows? But unfortunately, those two are mine.
Those two that you mentioned, they both looked like they played very safe. Very safe football. I don't think there was a lack of effort there. But, we didn't see a whole lot of risk-taking from Naden in that position. And he looked like he was definitely short of a gallop. I think he was blowing a lot early. They had a lot of ball early in the game, if you recall. So that can't be easy to deal with. It. Look, when we get to talk about how the game played out, that's one thing I really wanted to zero in on. But, yeah, I agree with you. Interesting he's been picked at wing this week over Luke Leilani.
Look, honestly, Luke was a short third for my sink. I thought he wasn't up to scratch, really, to be honest.
You reckon? I didn't mind his performance at all. He dropped one ball, but they peppered him all day. He took a lot of good catches. He scored a desperate try. He should have had a second if he didn't get coat hangered by Moses across the face. So I thought Luke was good, to be honest. But I think that the reason they picked Naden, bigger body, taller body, we're coming up against Mulatalo and Stone Street this week. And so I think they wanted a little bit more confidence in the air, and fair enough too.
Yeah, that's fair. And like I said, a very, very, probably one of the biggest thinkers was Liam Kennedy. I think he was absolutely shocking.
So you lift, is he?
No, he's my sink. Dickhead.
He's your fourth, second runner-up.
Oh, that was easily the worst officiating I've seen this year. Easy.
Not good. We'll get to that. We'll keep that within its box in a minute, because if we open up that Pandora, Liam Kennedy, Graham Annesley referees are corrupt since the grasshopper box, mate, you can't put it back in. As you well know, things never go back in the box the way they come out of the box. So we better keep that very compartmentalised, and it nearly needs a segment, because it's bursting at the seams this week, and I know you're itching. I can see it on your face. I can tell it's eating. You just want to get stuck in, but mate, just bear with me. Hold out. Who's your lift?
Okay, my lift is Buller.
Okay.
I thought Buller was sensational. Very, very close was May, but May has been, if we had a lift for the year so far, he's head and shoulders above everyone else. But Buller was just, he was everywhere. And he's such a silky smooth mover. Like, looks like he's barely even sort of at half stride, and he's breaking 6 tackles. Yeah, he's my lift. He's Buller. So,
would you say that Buller is still very much a work in progress?
Oh shit, yeah.
He still looks.
Oh, you go.
I was just going to say, he looks to me like a still raw as player that has started to improve his game. That's all he looks like to me. He looks like a second grader looking to get to the end of high school. Like, there's so many areas of his game that he could do so much better. And you're hoping that he's being coached. He's being coached by one of the best from our club in Hodgson and whatnot. Inglis is there on the scene. So you'd hope that we would only expect that to get better and better over time.
Look, it's clearly evident that he hasn't even scratched the surface.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm sign this kid up long term. Keep him on the books for a long time.
I need something else out of him. I need the desperation we saw, though, in the first 6 games of his career. Because
perfect example of that tackle on Cleary in that Panthers win.
Yeah, because if he's guilty of something at the moment, it's probably just perception, because he's often moving at lightning speed when he looks like he's barely breaking a jog. But if there's a couple of knocks on him, if there is a knock on him at the moment, it's just that desperation around.
You talking about that 40-20?
Well, there's a 40-20 example, but there's a lot. He got wrong-footed again in this game, as that last line of defence too, and with someone with his speed, nobody should get past him as that last line of defence. So it's either an overcommitment on his behalf, and unless we're talking like a Hammer or someone, but very few people should be able to get past him without him getting a hand on him. And he's missed a few of them lately, and so just that little bit of desperation comes back. He looks like a player that's worked really hard on his attacking game, and I agree he's coming along really well. He's as good as we've ever seen him, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope it hasn't come at the expense of the little things that made us sit up and take notice early, which was the attention to detail around the defensive side of the game.
See, I haven't really noticed it that much. I've noticed a couple of lapses, but I still feel like he's there when he needs to be. So
yeah, generally, yeah. His positional play, I still think could use a little bit of work, but that I anticipate will come with time. Easy to remember, he's still coming back from shoulder surgery.
Yep.
Missed the first game, I think, from memory, just the first game.
Yeah.
So he's a half a dozen games back, interrupted by injury last year, and the year before that was his rookie season. So it's easy to forget. He seems like he's been around for a while, Dream, but it's easy to forget that he's still quite young.
Yeah, what is he, 22? 23?
23, I think. Just recently engaged, which is exciting, to Solomon Hermono's daughter.
Wasn't he just recently married?
Was he recently married or recently engaged? Recently married.
He was recently married. Yeah.
And she plays in the women's side. I'm not sure if she's in NRLW or Harvey Norman, but Arlia. Yeah. Anyway,
You know better than I would.
Good lift, mate. My sink is Jerome Luai. And I really don't want to say that because everything he's done through this last week that we've had has been nothing but impressive for me, and that includes his social media post and the way it was done. It was a reminder of, and it was basically a call to the rest of the team to, let's remember to put the team first. It was a rallying cry in a crisis for the club when that news first came out. So I'm fine with that. On the weekend, he had a chance to step up and take control. And I'm not talking from a general point of view. I'm talking from a big game player, marquee signing, captain of the club, face of the club, playmaker point of view. And he just didn't do it. There was situations there in the last tackle, I think on more than one occasion, where he shoveled the ball off to Terrell May on the last tackle. And this, I get point chasing, but this was not in the last 10 or 12 minutes. These happened earlier in the game. And it's been a problem all season, and it has to be sorted out. Because if Adam Dewey is there to take most of the long kicking and put the long high bombs up, which he was there with his big boot, Jerome has to take control of those last 2-3 rucks of that set, including the kick. He needs to be setting up play 4, play 5. He needs to make sure that he knows who's where and where they need to be. He needs to make sure that he's got kick options. Does he go short or does he go long? But he needs to make sure he's executing on that. He needed to be better, in my eyes. Disappointing from me, and we need more out of him. Remember we said at the start of the year that we're taking time to learn how to play with everyone, and it's the Api Coruscant treatment from a couple of years ago, and it'll take time. Well, we're getting a couple of months into the season now, and we need to see things gelling better than what they are.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. Very fair point. Who's your lift then?
Who was you lifted Terrell, didn't you?
No, Buller.
Buller, that's right. I'm not going to say Terrell because he's just doing what he does. 80 minutes again. He got his try, so you can't nominate that as your bold prediction anymore.
Shit.
I to be honest, before I get to my lift, my sink was, I was about to say Tito, and then I shifted to Jerome. I thought, no, Jerome as the captain should have been a bit higher. I just wanted to mention that, Tito was definitely a very close second for that one because we need better. If culture leaders, we need better. He stuffed up with his post getting leaked, and he stuffed up on the weekend. But that's right, we move on. We're allowed to make mistakes in the heat of battle. My lift is actually going to be Luke, and it's disappointing because he got dropped. I thought that he was very brave in the way he played yesterday. I think he hurt himself early in that game. I think he did a wrist or something. And you could see him clutching at it for a few sets. And considering he got absolutely peppered, I think he only dropped the one contested bomb from memory. And at the moment, with the way that teams are really challenging bombs and contesting bombs, almost every fullback, and I know he plays wing, but almost every fullback or winger for that matter, I guess, we're seeing at least a drop or two per game on contested bombs. At least. More often than not, quite a lot more. So I can forgive him for a single. I thought he took a lot of good catches. I thought his desperation, the in goal to get his try was just the attitude you want to see and the desperation you want to see. And I thought he did a decent job out of the backfield. He's just not there. But if he's doing this at 18, he's got hopefully a bit of growing to do. He's a player that will just get better and better over time, I think.
Look, yeah, I'm just more. I was just more concerned in terms of, like, when I say he's my sink, it's not putting him down. I just think that he wasn't where we needed him to be, and I think it was just more development than anything.
Yeah, possibly, and it's easy to forget he is only 18.
Yep.
But
he's still
ran for over 100 metres. What did Fatape do when he played wing? He ran for like 40 metres or something.
Yeah.
So,
Fatape has been my sink a couple of times.
Yeah. All right, mate. That game. I'm going to give you gave West Tigers Life a plug before. I'm going to give the West Tigers Faithful a plug now because I was watching their live stream this afternoon. Good stuff, boys, as always. I think Joe made a point, and I'm not going to quote because I'll get it wrong, but paraphrasing something along the lines. I thought he summed it up perfectly. It was something along the lines of Tigers went out and got into the arm wrestle, and both teams got into the arm wrestle, and then. Parramatta got they got a bit of a weight of possession. They got a lot of stuff go their way early, but then we got back into that arm wrestle again. And then once Parra got a couple of calls and a couple of rough calls go against us, and they went bang bang bang. Then that focus that we had and the willingness to get tough and get into that arm wrestle turned into aggression, and that turned into boiling over and hot-headedness and making mistakes. And so, those calls triggered our energy to be put in the wrong areas, and we started to self-combust, and it was too hard to sort of get the game back from there. And I thought, it was a good summary because it wasn't if the boys didn't show up to play. It wasn't if the effort wasn't there. But it was one of those games where it can be hard to pinpoint exactly where it went wrong. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. I thought it was a good summary. And sorry if I haven't done it justice.
I can probably tell you exactly where it went wrong, and it was the very first tackle of the game.
Mm. All right, this is where you want to have your...
Oh, fuck. I waited too long. I waited too long.
You have. You've done well. Mate, it's 26 minutes, 26 seconds. You've done extremely well. So, your mate with the whistle.
Oh, my God. Don't ever say that again.
Yeah.
So is this my opportunity to rant? Is this my opportunity to rant?
Go for it.
Oh, mate. I could not fathom how there were so many wrong calls. And, everyone's like, oh, but you got the penalty count. We should have got it by a lot more. Because very first tackle, Kelma Tuolagi, shoulder charges, Terrell May directly in the beak. And now I think it's been a very clear message from Benji. We don't lay down. We don't milk for a penalty. Because if you remember, Taruva did that, and then we brought him off for a HIA. It wasn't the NRL, it was us. And I don't think there was any HIA. I think it was Benji sending a message, we don't milk for penalties. So Terrell gets up. That has been a send-off, a sin bin, every single game this year. Every single round. It's been a sin bin. Didn't even notice it. Why? I was probably looking at the pocket where all Parramatta shoved these notes in.
I'll keep talking just in case we have lost you.
And then...
Yeah, look... Sorry, I'm not sure if we lost you there, mate, but you may well have lost me. So did you just want to go through quickly what you were saying again?
I think we lost you, but that's whatever it is. I was just saying I was talking about the very first tackle.
Yeah.
From Tulagi on May. Got him right in the beak, and that's been a sin bin every game this year so far. Nothing. Didn't even see it. You know why? No idea, because he's a shit ref. Then there was the missed very blatant strip on us. That was deemed a knock on.
Also, Appy couldn't challenge that because it was play on. There's no stop in play, so he couldn't have challenged it.
Yeah, and which was horrendous because right in front of the ref too.
Yeah.
Then obviously there was the hip drop. Explain to me how that's hip drop. Granted, that wasn't his decision. That was the video ref's decision, but that was Adam G, who's a muppet as well. And
the thing about that one was the fact that, and there was multiple things. Kelma Tuolagi hopped straight back up and ran into the defence again, and then he scores a try later in that set, and that kick started their triple bang.
Yep.
Try that sort of blew the game away from us so early in that second half. Now,
Yeah.
Momentum is a tricky beast in rugby league, as we all know. And if you artificially, we've spoken about this before, if you artificially receive momentum through a referee decision, particularly one that's wrong, it can change the entire game and swing it on its head. It was 10-all, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, not only are we going through the fact that these decisions were... But to be honest, the hip drop tackle, to be honest, I reckon that's more of a 50-50 than a lot of people giving it credit for. I don't agree with the hip drop rule at all. But part of his body does touch part of Kelmer's heel. I still don't think it's a hip drop. I certainly don't think it's a penalty, and neither did the match review committee because they didn't charge him. But the point that I'm trying to make is that, I don't know, I completely lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
How shit the refs are. But...
Yeah, so, yes. That's what happens sometimes. I go off on a tangent when I'm tired. Yeah, just more the fact that it was the timing of them and how key some of those decisions were, how influential they were. Sorry, I'll let you keep going because I know you got more to get through.
Oh, it's just more too. I'm pretty certain the letter of the law, the hip drop is you have to lose your legs to land on part of their lower body, which constitutes a hip drop. Never lost his legs. Slid down because momentum was pulled him forward.
Yeah, quite possibly. Like I said, I agree. But I just think that one wasn't as cut as dry as what everyone's making it out, in my opinion. But I still err on the side of not. Certainly, I don't agree with hip drops in general. So,
but and then the other one, and I cannot believe this, was the head high tackle from Bird. I didn't even see any part of Bird's body hit any part of whoever that Muppet's face was.
I'll let that wash, and I'll tell you why. Because there was a couple of soft ones we received in return from maybe not a couple, maybe one. There's definitely one from them where I was like, ugh. And considering how big some of the other calls were in the game, yes. I think, did they score off that Jack Bird one, though?
They scored off that as well. Yep.
There you go. That's up to us to defend that, obviously. But like we were talking about with momentum, this game has never been more able to be manipulated. And I'm not saying maliciously, but referees can inadvertently manipulate games, right? No one's disputing that. If a flood of penalties come from a referee's discretionary decision to award penalties and 6 agains, if a flood of possession comes, that inadvertently is manipulating the game, isn't it? They've had a say in how the game has gone. And weight of possession means that even the worst of teams are going to score. So
it's just what are you saying?
Yeah. All I'm trying to say is that we'd be foolish to try and pretend as though these decisions don't have major ramifications on the game. And not only the game henceforth. Like if Samuela isn't penalised for that tackle, they probably don't go down and score because they were just on around the halfway mark, or not even. Just around it.
I think it was the third tackle.
They might have got an attacking kick in, they might have scored, but most teams don't score, so there's a higher chance they don't. And then off the back of that, we get the ball back, which didn't happen for the next 8 minutes or so. So these things can make a big difference, mate. You're leaving out the big one. What about the Mitchell Moses swinging arm across Luke Leali's face?
Like how that's not a penalty try in my eyes is beyond me.
Yeah.
But at minimum, that's a sin bin. You sit there and they're like, oh, but they're falling down. Did you watch how Mitchell Moses' arm went? It went from up, like it went in an upward motion. If he's going down for the ball, and Luke jumps into his, falls into his arm and hits it, I sit there and like, you know what? That is literally like somebody putting their hand beside them and you've run into it. That's fair. But he went from like at his side and up. So he's gone with forward momentum up into his head. That's not as...
Well, the other side of the coin is, though, you can get done for attacking players on the ground high. So it doesn't matter if he's diving for the line and gets him high. It doesn't matter. Mitchell Moses has lowered his point, his area. But if anything, it gets Luke Leali'i when he's horizontal. So it's not a matter of getting the height wrong. He has to he has to aim to get him out here, to get him in the head, to come across and get him. Because Luke Leali's horizontal, not vertical. When someone's vertical, they might get their height and the height of their arm wrong, or it might bounce up off the ball. But if someone's horizontal, you've almost got to have a vertical arm to get them flush across the face, or at least on a bit of an angle. So, he's clearly was playing for the ball and missed the ball, but you need to have the ramifications of that. In both rugby union and rugby league, a penalty try is awarded when foul play by the defending team prevents a probable try from being scored or scored in a more advantageous position. The penalty try is awarded between the goalposts, so no conversion. Yeah, so conversion is required. The rule is designed to punish unfair play that directly prevents the try. So he committed a foul that was penalised. He committed foul play. In so doing, prevented a try. If Luke Leali doesn't get smacked across the face, as in Mitchell Moses is forced to reposition his body, then he doesn't immediately hold his momentum like he does. By him hitting his face, he turned him straight down and over. Mitchell Moses has to approach that tackle from a different position in order to avoid high contact. And the way he approached it was good enough to get him over the line. But if he actually protected Luke Leali's head, he would have had to change his position, which means he probably wouldn't have been able to hit him with as much force, which means he tried. He would have scored the try. The bottom line is none of that really matters anyway. Whether he was going to score or not, he was in the process of scoring a try and foul play was committed. It's a penalty try every day of the week, and it's a sin bin. I say both, to be honest, but I know they don't do that. Turns out they didn't either. And he did get charged, but with a fine, which I can't believe either. He gets him flush, mate. It was not good.
So here's the thing that, is it Adam G, the referee, who is renowned as a die-hard Parramatta fan?
Who's that?
Adam G. Is he the one that's known as a Parramatta fan?
I think that's Atkins.
Is that Atkins, is it? Okay.
Yeah. But let's not go into that territory. We can talk about bad refereeing performances without talking about conspiracies. And I know that that's your wheelhouse, and I know that you like getting over there with your flat earthers and talking about how they're all out to get us. But we can still say that was a shithouse refereeing performance. And Parramatta copped a couple of bad calls too. I'll admit, 100%. They did. A couple of head scratches on their side, but they weren't as impactful in terms of where they happened in the game, and that was by sheer luck. It wasn't on purpose. But some of the big calls, or I should say all of the big calls that were dubious in terms of how they were adjudicated went against us. And that's the bottom line. We missed the big ones. The big ones stung us big time.
Well, think about this. If they were consistent with these head-high tackles, if Tuolagi goes off in the first 30 seconds of that game, do we start to build momentum and push forward? Yes, because we have a lot of energy. But
that game goes off to a different universe. They're 12 men to start the game. And like you said, we've got full energy. There's every chance that we take control of possession early in that game and wear them out, and they can't defend for the last 60 minutes. We put a cricket score on them. And that's your point, right?
And Tuolagi's been charged for that, hasn't he? 2 games.
I was just about to say, so he was charged 3-4 weeks was what he was looking at, and he's just accepted an early guilty plea. He accepted 3 weeks. He got a grade 2. We didn't get a penalty. We didn't get a sin bin. Nothing.
Nothing. But yet apparently
the return argument. The return argument I've heard is the Isaiah Iongi Stafford Tower before the ball. Now, I would actually have been disappointed, but satisfied with saying that was simultaneous. I would have seen the argument with that. I can also see that the argument that he possibly gets him a microsecond before he touches the ball, which 100% you can't do that, clear as day. But the point is, that's not an argument from Parramatta fans because the game was gone for the most part. We should have never been in that position. If it's like, oh yeah, well, and this I've heard this today, read this today. It's like Terrell May, or the hit on Terrell May earlier in the game. Yeah, well, you got one later on with the Isaiah Iongi shocking sin bit. It's like that's in a different galaxy. The game went a completely different way to the way it should have gone. How do you miss it off a kickoff, mate? I missed it as a punter from the long view. How did the cameras miss it? It's at Combank Stadium. Like this wasn't played at Lidcombe, where Galvin was, coincidentally. How did they miss that? And it's just
no, they didn't miss it. They picked up on
mind-blowing.
it 3 sets later when it didn't mean shit.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
And, yeah, it is. So, yeah, look, woeful performance from a refereeing standpoint, and we were on the rough end of it again. You know, it's the old adage in rugby league circles. It goes around, comes around, and these sort of things all even out over time.
Fuck, when's it going to be out on?
We've had one game this year where the ball has gone out, the bounce of the ball's gone our way, and I think it was the Dolphins game. Ever since then, and I'm not just saying ref decisions, I'm saying the literal bounce of the ball. We've been down and out of our luck for so long that we don't get the happy ending fairy tale at the end of the week, good news story. We don't get the bounce of the ball. We don't get the refereeing decisions. And that's not me being morose. That's me saying that's the reality at the moment. And it further exemplifies the mountain that we need to overcome to continue to try and slowly dig this club out of the mire. We're swimming upstream, mate.
We shouldn't have to. Like, it's just
we shouldn't have to. You're right. It would be good to have a couple of decisions go our way, but look,
it'd be good to have a couple
once
go our way.
Yeah, I'm picking up one side of that referee beat up box, and I'm starting to close my side of the lid. Are you happy to meet me in the middle with your piece of cardboard, and we'll put some packing tape on it and send it off to wherever?
Oh, for this week, we'll see what happens on fucking Sunday.
Oh, good. We'll save that for next episode.
Yeah. This week, I'm happy to wrap it up, and I've vented. It was very cathartic, but...
Positives. I'm going to look for some silver linings out of that game. I thought the way that they fought back into the game was very admirable. They were a Josh Addo-Carr intercept away from being in front.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that, again, is a miracle low percentage play that just came off for them. Like Josh Addo-Carr beating Tito one-on-one in that situation. Tito had him covered. He hasn't missed a single tackle where he's pushed out on a late scramble once this year. He happens to miss that one. Difficult. And I said I was looking for positives, but yeah, the way they showed that resilience. We lost Royce before the game. They obviously knew he was going to be in doubt, but again, and I know they're missing a few players as well, so it's probably not a fair real comment to make. Both sides being without players, but what I mentioned very early in the show, and I need to touch on it, is the possession early. The game went away from us early. And I think it was on display later in that second half. You could see how gassed the boys were. And I know that the possession evened up a lot towards the end, but I reckon the possession we had in that last 20 minutes, for the most part, once we lost that bit of momentum at 22-26, I think that we just ran out of steam and we didn't have much left. I think that's why a lot of our sets towards the back end of the game, when we're trying to chase it, it was just all gone. And we were just getting hammered by six again. We were hammered by penalties early, and they would just camp down on our line. I can't remember the time I looked at the clock, whether it was 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe even 20. But Parramatta had 2/3 of possession, literally 67%, flashed up on the screen. And I think that hammered us early and wore us down.
Look, when I'm thinking about silver linings, it's really hard to sort of pinpoint anything in that game because all I remember is screaming at the TV. But I think for me, the silver lining was, and it's a weird one. It is a very weird one. But for me, the silver lining is that Dewey is one of our centres. That is a silver lining for me. I feel that he has locked up that side quite well this whole season. He has had great communication with his winger, and his inside man has always pushed when he needed to. So I feel good about saying that, and I said it 3 or 4 weeks ago, that for me as a starting centre, Dewey is my lock. And I think based on the performance, not only of Dewey in the halves, but also the outside men around him, I think that solidified my decision that he is a starting centre for me. But that is his position now. So I think it's a weird one, but I think that's what this has taught me. So
he certainly looked better there than the way that the whole setup worked on the weekend in half anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other silver lining for me, and I know it sounds weird to say and it's starting to become a concern, but it's the fact that we still haven't played well. I'm starting to get the shits with it, for being honest. But we're in all these games, and I don't think we're playing well. Certainly on the weekend, we were pretty awful. Well, good in patches, but even that, we were patchy. The attack was patchy. It had no structure or flow about it. We didn't have the ability to hit 1, 2, 3 punch, ruck after ruck after ruck, or get a roll on it all. We just sat back and succumbed. And maybe it's a month and a half of playing some tough footy, and maybe we were due for an off game and everything around the emotion of the week. And we've barely touched on the Lachlan Galvin saga in this episode, and it's actually been good. But, the fact we still haven't played well means we've got a lot of improvement to go. A lot of improvement. Whether we get there or not is the question. Whether we get there this season or at all. Whether Benji can get that improvement out of us. That's the question still, but I think the silver lining is the fact that this is not the team redlining at their best, struggling to get wins. This is the team fumbling and bumbling their way to being they've been in every game this year. They're in the Broncos game up until their eyeballs until a certain point, and certainly on the weekend as well. All of the losses outside of those 2 games have got 2 points, which we should have probably won both of them. So that is a silver lining, but we've got to start to get some clarity. Hopefully when Latu comes back, hopefully Skelton can go on a injury-free run, and we can actually spend the second half of the year getting some consistent game time together as a unit, because we now know, in the very short term, who knows, but in the certainly medium to long term, Latu is our 5'8".
Yep.
We've had 0 time with that spine now. So we've got to accumulate time and games with them working together and learning how to play, and we'll see. That might bring about a semi-final berth. I'm not saying that we're going to languish or giving any season away. The seasons feel very much alive, but we're going to start to see some improvement. We're going to start to see a system and a way that they go about things. I think defensively they got their systems, but I think in attack they're all at sea. It's been individual brilliance and a bit of luck where we've been able to score tries every game, not against the best defences. But anyway, I might move on from that. What do you say?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to move on from the Eels game because can't talk about them anymore. But I did want to. You mentioned that we haven't touched on the Lachlan Galvin's saga.
Yep.
I think it is fair to sort of give our two cents about, because obviously last episode we talked about the decision and everything like that, and then a few things have happened since then as well.
Yep.
And then there's been a few reports and a few updates. And the reason that I kind of want to talk about it is because I think my view of the kid has changed a little bit.
Okay.
And again, a lot of this is hearsay, but there's reports that a lot of this actually has nothing to do with Galvin in terms of his decisions. A lot of it has to do with outside influence. Majority of it has to do with outside influence. And I won't name names because we don't know the truth. We don't know what's black and what's white there. But if this is true, I feel really sorry for the kid. And, I was talking to my wife about it before, and she looked at me and she said, so it's like another Yelena Dokic situation. And it did click. It was like, yeah, if this is all true, it is. And I feel sorry for the kid. I mean, he has to show up with a smile on his face and, do what he's told to an extent. And, some part of him clearly does want to go somewhere else. But the way it's been handled, I don't think has anything. It's none of his doing. None of his doing. All of this push for him to get an early release and these tactics and things like that, with these two players named in terms of bullying and this lawsuits and stuff like that. Apparently it's got nothing to do with him. He's not pushing for this. He's not moving the chess pieces like that. It's everyone else. And he's just stuck between a rock and a hard place. And that's why I think Benji is, in that press conference. And again, applaud Benji for that press conference. That was one of the best press conferences I've ever seen. Really backed up the kid and said, just leave him alone. Leave him alone. And
I will say, though, that since he did that press conference and leading into the game, there were two stories that came out. There was the legal letter that was leaked leading into the game. And then there was the false report about, since found out it's false report about Matamua and Tuma making
by the way,
official complaints.
Matamua's been named at 5'8" this week for New South Wales Cup.
Yes, coincidence, maybe? Yeah, yeah. And so that's since been coming out by the club and put to bed. But those two things have since been leaked. So after Benji comes out and amicably says they're good people, let's cut out all the bullshit and just let him play footy, their side has then leaked out multiple stories off the back of that positive message, that inclusive message, that supportive message about more issues within the club. So I agree with you in that sense. I think that Lachlan Galvin just wants to play at Parramatta. I had a theory last week where, and I haven't mentioned it, when you call Andrew Johns making his statement about how good would it be to take the Tigers, be the person that turned the Tigers around. And he mentioned that as one of the reasons that he heard that at the time, one of the reasons why he came out and said he's fully committed and he loves the club and that sort of stuff. I've got a theory that has since been, that same message has since been warped, whether by his mates or his old man or even some of his own thoughts into, he's going to be the saviour of the club, but he's going to be the person that brings the title back to Parramatta after their drought. I reckon that he's probably his father or Mitchell Moses or whatever have said, remember that story that John said? Imagine if you went back to the club you love, grew up supporting, and you win them a title for the first time in 40 years. And I reckon that's what's happened. And then since then, there's just been inner machinations back and forth, and Moses would have been able to have the conversations he needed to have, ABC. They got reported that Mitchell Moses and he were having coffee a few weeks back. He's going to go to Parramatta. So I don't subscribe to the fact that he's innocent pawn in this. I think he's a naive kid, and I think he's very easily persuaded. And then I think in combination with that, he is the type of kid, and this is all speculation, but he's the type of kid who wants to be the it guy and is not he's not the centre of the it crowd there. He came through thinking that he and Talon and Kit and this next wave of boys, Matamua and Tumith and all these others, were going to be the core of the squad. And then all of a sudden, no, we've taken pieces of that core group of juniors and we've added correctly, mind you, the pieces around them to build the squad out. And I don't think he likes that. He's not vibing necessarily with Luai. You can see that on and off the field, and that was by admission. And so I think there's a multitude of factors there, but I think the dirty stuff we're seeing now, I know for a fact Moses is just dialing up, just turning up the dials 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to try to get the reaction that he wants. And I think the fact that Benji picked him this week, and this can parlay into his selection this week, I think this is the exact opposite of what they want. Because basically Benji and the club have just gone, they've done their press conference, they said their piece last week, they said if it's the coach's decision and he's in the right mindset and he's got his head screwed on, then he can come and perform a duty and we'll do our jobs. And outside of that, the Tigers haven't said a whole lot. They dropped him last week, which I actually reckon was to keep him away from the fans, which was a good decision. No, hardly anyone mentioned that. Yet when other players have gone in the same position, they've been left away so they don't get booed by their fans, and people mention that as a legitimate reason. But mind you, I reckon he's been recalled this week. Basically said to him, right, you're our best choice 5'8". We let you have a bit of time away last week to cool everything down, take the sting out of everything. Your camp, mind you, has still fucking been sitting there twiddling their thumbs and poking the bear. But you're still contracted. We've got a job to do. So we need you blokes to remember why you signed here, remember what your job you're paid to do is, and you need to go out there and do what you need to do. And so Benji and the club are treating Lachlan Galvin like an employee that's still here for 18 months. And that's exactly not what Isaac Moses wants. That's why he's dialing it up, because the Tigers just sort of said, we're here to support him. We're looking forward to having him for 18 months. He'll be in reserves this week. We'll see where we go from there. And he's got a job to do as a contracted player for the next 18 months. And then nothing. See these stories start to come out. I wouldn't be surprised off the back of his selection if we see more stories pop out in the next day or two as Moses gets more and more desperate. And I'll say something I said a day or two back. I say bloody oath. I say don't say a single word further and just let him go into a tailspin as he tries to dial it up and just give him enough rope to hang himself. Metaphorically. Absolutely. But in terms of, he's already on the nose of most of the league. Most of the casual observer and the standard fan and the pundit and what out there and the talking heads. Like, a lot of people are off him. I think we just keep our lips shut. We treat Galvin as another employee. He keeps playing, training, doing his duty. And we just let Moses continue to try to see how far he can push it to get what he wants. Remember, if he gets Galvin released early, he gets a big fucking payday. Like, his incentive is massively financial here.
Mm. Well, I mean, he's also got his mouthpieces in the media doing their thing. I mean, Woodsy has just gone downhill in my eyes pretty substantially. I mean, he's obvious, like, he's an ex-client of Isaac Moses. He might even still be a current one. I don't know how it works when he went into radio and stuff. And he's just supporting everything that Isaac Moses is doing in socials. It's disgusting, and it's really. I'm off him completely now. I'm off him completely.
So I wanted to mention as well. There was a user on X. Hang on. Let's see if I can find it. I might not be able to find it. Okay, yeah, user by the name of Al Dente, I think. So credit to him. I can't verify whether it's true or not, but he reportedly had contacts or whatnot where he sent a message to Isaac Moses saying that he's got some inside info, but he doesn't want to be named if he's interested in having it in regards to a bit of dirt on the Tigers. Entirely made up. It was a setup. He then received a text message back from Denny Wildler. Why can't I say that today? Denny Wildler. Saying, excuse the message. I've been told to get in touch with you that you might have a bit of information about the Tigers. I can just assure you that you want to stay confidential or whatnot. No worries, Danny Widler. And a little back and forth and a little follow-up message or whatnot. He put it out as bait to see who Isaac's feeding, but it's not hard to see. I can't speak to whether or not that username on X, whether that story is 100% true, but he said he's happy to verify the actual phone number, so it may well be. Anyway, the point being, you look around and you mentioned Woodsy, former client, maybe current still, I don't know, but definitely he was close to him. Reed, Ricky-O, we know that Shemus talks to him. Shemus is a funny one because sometimes he talks and he seems like he's pro-Tigers. He does argue, I will give him something, he does argue devil's advocate relatively well, but he does peddle the wrong angle. And he knows he does, and he knows it becomes destabilising, and he knows that it makes for more stories. So it's a positive feedback loop for him. And, Cameron Smith, managed by Isaac Moses most of his career, he's saying similar things. There's a lot of people out there. You just join those dots through, and the mouthpieces are everywhere when you think about it. It's funny though, because when you look at all the dissenting opinions, or most of them across, from what I could see, almost all of them have an Isaac Moses tie.
Oh yeah,
or a connection.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you've got people that seem to be calling these people out. And I can't stand him, but Andrew Webster seems to be one of those ones that calling out these mouthpieces. Whether he's just pissed off he's not getting a piece of the pie, I don't know. But yeah,
no, but he has been good, and he seems to cut through a lot of the bullshit for the most part. And that doesn't mean everything that he always says we'll agree with, and obviously we won't. But he doesn't seem, at least from what I can tell, one of those shills that he's just the mouthpiece to create alternative rhetorics, basically.
Well, the only thing that I'll give him credit up until this week, because I dare say Buzz will come out with something that pisses us off this week because we're playing the Sharks. But Buzz has been all right.
The buzz hasn't been about Buzz. He's actually been pro Tigers this year, if you can believe it.
It's been weird. Yeah. I don't like it.
You're going to have to put some new photographs on your dartboard, my friend.
Oh, I already have. It's just a big picture of Isaac Moses.
Oh, good point. That one should have been on there from 2015-16, though. 17.
Oh no, it was Teddy back then. I just felt personally hurt by him.
Via Isaac Moses.
Yeah, I didn't really read that much into it back then.
Yeah, but now hindsight, eh?
Oh shit! Yeah. Can't stand the pre.
Mate, we're getting a bit long, but let's look at the game coming up against the Sharks this week. So, excuse me. Give me a moment, and I'll run through the lineup. But it's a couple of changes. Dream Buller at fullback, Taruva and Brent Naden moves out to a wing with Dewey returning to that centre position. We've got Galvin obviously recalled. We've touched on that. We'll mention that again in a moment. We're not going to break it down too much, simply because everyone is breaking it down. So there's a lot of those points of view out there, and we'll just be derivative by saying the same thing. We've got Galvin at 6, Luai at 7. The forward pack is the same as it's been for most of the year, so we're fortunate in that regard. May, Coruscant, Pole, Fainu, Seyfarth, and Twal, and we've got Royce renamed, so our bench is the same as it's been most of the year, something we have been able to keep relatively okay. Talon, Hunt, Bird, Fainu, the extended squad. 18 is Sukar, 19 Mason, Kit Laulali'i, Solomon Fa'atape, and Tristan Hope is the 22. So obviously we see Luke Laulali'i come out of the squad there, being replaced by, excuse me, Naden on the wing. So we're back to, let me just get a drink there. Excuse me. We're back to that back line, mate. For the most part, stands skeleton, obviously, with Naden out there, but we're back for we're back to that back line that we're relatively familiar with. Do you think that's going to improve structure straight away on the weekend?
Absolutely. I think if Naden can just not jam the way that he does at times, or if he does, it's because his centre jammed, and he stays on his man. He just needs to be a meter eater and be good under the high ball. I'm happy with that. Yeah. Very, very happy, as mentioned before, that Dewey is back in the centres. I think he has clearly trained there all off season. I think he's done very well so far. I think, see, when you said that Tito was just sink, I get it, he made some mistakes, but there were definitely times where I was like, yeah, look, he's clearly got team first mentality as well.
100%.
He was standing up for Bullo. He's pulling him off. He's like, get off him. Just leave him alone.
100%. And I don't doubt that for a second. It was just more, I see him as a leader of this side moving forward. And I know he's very young, but he's a culture leader. And culture leaders can't get sent to the sin bin for disciplinary actions. You can go in and defend your teammate, but you can't. You can't. And that's just a maturity thing. He'll figure that out. I'm sure Benji will have that chat to him. I don't think we'll see that happen a lot. I'm not saying he won't run in and defend a teammate, but I'm saying he won't do it in the way that he did it.
Yeah. So, I think for me, this is definitely going to improve the structure. the stability as well. And yeah, like automatically I'm seeing a more positive outlook there.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Lachlan Galvin getting reinstated. Do you agree with it? Yes or no?
No,
Why not?
I think he should have shown some bloody spine. But, you know, if we win games, I'll take it all back. But I feel like we put a line in the sand, and I just feel like we should have shown a bit more spine. Showed a bit more balls. I think that's, you know, I'm not. It's hard to put it into words because, like, apart from me just saying I wish they showed some more balls and not backing down at the first sign, really, it's more, yeah. I don't know if there's more than I can elaborate to that.
Yeah. Look, put it this way. I think if Latu Fainu is fit, he's not recalled. So in some ways, and I get it, I get all the pride thing. I get all the ego thing. I get the punishment. I get the fuck around and find out. I get that. I get all of it. If I could simplify it, two things. I mentioned one earlier. This is the last thing Isaac Moses wants, which is the club just getting on with it. He wants the club to be shaken by everything he's trying to stir up, and us just not really responding and just picking him as per normal and getting on with it is something he won't want. So I get joy out of that. But the second thing is, if Jerome Luai is team first, I think the way he presented himself last week was a great leader's knock. I thought that he presented himself well as team first. He united the squad. I know it didn't turn out on Monday. Probably emotionally exhausted after a big week. That sounded really shitty, like an excuse. That wasn't an excuse. But so I think that team first is recognising that the team plays better with Lachlan in it. And he's been told they didn't like his disrespect. He's been demoted last week in response to showing disrespect for the team. I'm not saying that it's complete, but in some ways he's done his penance. He's been put in his place. He's received a consequence for showing disrespect to his teammates and his coach. And team first then is saying, okay, let's pick our best 17. Let's put our differences aside and do our job. I think that is a counter argument for his selection. I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with it. I certainly don't 100% agree with it, but I can see the rationale behind it from that perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. Look, I can't disagree with any of that. I'm just sick of us not showing balls when we need to.
I know, and I'll probably just explain it away. But before we, not before we, but we've got to remember to do your quick juniors pathways wrap up, which is coming just after this game very quickly. But I just wanted to say before we jump into that, how do you see the game going? And have you got a bold prediction for me?
Unfortunately, I can see us losing this one just because of the Sharks. I don't think the recall of Galvin is going to put us over the line, but I do think it's going to close the gap a bit. I think it's going to be something along the lines of 24-16, going to the Sharks. And bold prediction is... Look, I think bold prediction for me is off the back of a pretty quiet game for his standards. I think Appy is going to stand up pretty significantly. So,
I've got to be honest, my confidence has been pretty shattered by that Parramatta game.
yeah.
And I want to see it as an anomaly, but there were that team on the weekend was not the team that we've seen in the previous 6 matches. They were very different. And
yeah.
We've spoken about a bunch of reasons. We didn't mention another bunch of reasons as to why that might have been the case. But the bottom line is, if they want to be known as anything but the triple wooden spooners, they need to put that in the rearview mirror, put the Lachlan Galvin bullshit in the rearview mirror, leave that alone and get their heads on straight and go out there and do their job the way they showed us in the first 6 weeks. I think if that side, the side we're used to, turns up, and we have some luck with some of the decisions, you'd like to think at Leichhardt that we would have a bit of luck. Touch wood, fingers crossed. I think we're every chance of beating the Sharks. My confidence has just been shattered after the weekend, and probably irrationally so.
Yep.
I'm going to stay positive because why not? 30-16, we win. Bold prediction. Jareen Buller just keeps doing it himself. I think we're going to keep leaning on him pretty heavily. I think he's going to have 2 tries and a try assist.
I like your prediction more than mine.
Someone had to be positive.
Yeah.
All right, mate. It's getting very long in the tooth, but it might be time for a quick. Is it time?
Yeah, it's time.
Sure it's time? Must be time.
Yeah, it's time.
It's time. Toby's Weekly Pathways Roundup. You, Sonny?
Mate, so we'll start off with the New South Wales Cup. Obviously, we kind of know how that went based on all the media reports because Lockie was a part of that game, but he couldn't get us over the line going down to the Eels 22-10. It is worth noting that the Parramatta Eels do have a pretty stocked New South Wales Cup team. So, I think they're doing quite well this year. But yeah, it still could not get over the line. Apparently, he didn't have his best game by his own admission, but he tried for the full 80 minutes, and that's according to Shane Richardson, based on a report I read. So,
yep,
at least that's something. If we go to where are we here? Go to the Jersey Flag. So it's funny. The week before, when we played the Knights, we won in all 3 grades. This week, we've lost in all 3 grades, with the boys in Jersey Flag going down to Parramatta 34-26. And then we'll move on to the girls. We've got the Tasha Gale Cup. We were knocked out in week 2 of the finals by the Roosters, 22-16. But our Lisa Fiola girls, they are through to the finals, the final semis of the competition by beating the Sharks 24-18. So again, we will be cheering on the girls this Saturday at 1 p.m. when they face the Roosters for a spot in the grand final.
Yeah, the girls flying the flag. So
They're
into a prelim, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird old their final system they do. It's a bit different, but yeah, good on them. Well done. It's good to see one of the juniors pathway sides is doing great things. So well done. Fingers crossed they can get a win there this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then we can have something to cheer about, which would be good.
Thanks very much. Anything else you want to add, mate, before we wrap up the show?
No, it's very long in the tooth, this one.
It's a long one. A lot to talk about. Could have gone longer, but I think you and I need our beauty rest. I mean, more than you know. All West Tigers media are good media in our eyes. West Tigers podcast, West Tigers Life podcast, West Tigers Faithful podcast. The Ambush on Facebook, westtigersforum.com. Get around them. All good stuff. Tell them who sent you. The humble guys from the Tiger Town podcast. Got it right tonight, mate. Thanks to our sponsor. I knew I had to bugger it up there somewhere. Best on Ground Digital, bestongrounddigital.com, the digital marketing agency that looks after the little guy. They will not steer you wrong. Bestongrounddigital.com. Toby, mate, it's been an emotional week, I tell you. Not emotional in terms of the Kleenex box, but emotional in terms of just rough. And to finish with a loss in that fashion, I'm tired. I think I need a couple of nights' sleep, mate.
I'm very tired. I was so angry last night. I did not sleep well. So
it behooves us to say as well, before we just wrap up the show completely, that it is Anzac Day, obviously, this Friday. Now, big supporters, obviously, of our retired servicemen and women. And we'll be out there supporting the veterans, doing servicing and playing two up and donating as much as we can to Rotary. And we encourage everybody else to do the same. Seems as though some good old Aussie traditions are going a little bit by the wayside in this day and age. So hopefully, a nice big Australia Day where you celebrate how lucky we are and the sacrifices that that all the soldiers and service people in the past have done to allow us to have the country that we live in today. It's something that is very special to us, and fingers crossed that it can live long into the future in terms of tradition for Aussies, eh?
Absolutely.
Lest we forget, mate.
Lest we forget.
And I'm going to add to that, go the mighty West Tigers.
Up the Tigers.